So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us here today at our Ross Tours Garden Christmas event. For most of you who are regular travellers with us, you know that we have an annual get-together. And it's a really lovely event. We get to share photos of what we've been doing through the year. It's lots and lots of fun. And I mean, people make friends on our tours, so it's so nice coming together. So in COVID, of course, everything has changed, and for many people, we are now doing this online. So while that's a bit tricky, and as you can see, we are all a little challenged, but we're getting there. But the great benefit is that we actually get to have other people join us. So I'm going to introduce you to everyone who will be speaking today. So first of all, we have Sandra and Graham. So if you two would like to say hello.
Hi there.
Hi, good morning.
Joining us.
So Sandra, Graham and myself, we are currently in Sydney in the offices in Beecroft, but we also have Claire Bickle, our beautiful tour guide from Queensland. So Claire, you're in Brisbane, are you?
I am indeed in Brisbane.
Okay, thank you, Claire, and welcome. We also have Colin Barlow from Perth.
Good morning. It's great to be here from Australia.
Don't let that accent fool you. He is one of us. And we
Well,
also
almost.
have Libby. And Libby, are you on the Northern Beaches?
I'm at the beach, yes.
Oh, you're at the
Happy
beach.
Christmas, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So there's some real benefits because today, for the first time, we actually have more of our wonderful tour guides to join us for this Christmas sort of memorial. Oh, goodness, that was a wrong word, celebration. So, and it's a special celebration because it's actually 40 years. So full disclosure, the photos that you're about to see, yes, thank you, Graham. The photos you're about to see, I have put them together. So I've had some input, but you will see some really fun photos going back from 40 years of travel. And there's some particularly beautiful ones of our fearless leader, Sandra Ross, who is an absolute stunner. So you will love seeing her traveling around the world. And there's some gorgeous ones. So if any of our panelists get a bit of a shock, it's all up to me. So it's all my fault. But we'll have fun. So today is really just a chat. We're going to talk about the 40 years of tours. Everyone's sort of got something to say about the different tours, where we've gone. There's some highlights. And so really, I'm going to hand it over to Graham at this point. At the end, I'll sort of wrap up and I'll just tell you a little about our program for next year. But really, it's all about the 40 years that was. So Graham, I am going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, darling. It's interesting, in 40 years, and I've lost count at about 700 tours that we've done in that time, and the 60 or 70,000 people. But the tour company actually started back in 1980. Those wedding photographs of us were taken in 1969. So it's our 51st wedding anniversary this year, which was just a few weeks ago. And those photographs start from our wedding in Ashfield in Sydney, cutting a cake somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that was. And various locations and opportunities. The little photograph down the bottom was young Flinders and Melaleuca, our grandchildren, on a train, a steam train. And in fact, I remember both the children, because they wanted to stick their heads out of the train, ended up with soot in their eyes. But that normally doesn't happen in the 21st century, but it did, because we were often about travelling around on old historic trains. The very first tour that we took way back in 1980 came about because I'd been taking students and teachers from the Ryde School of Horticulture, initially to the Blue Mountains, and then to Queensland, then to the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, and then, good gracious, we went over the southern border to Victoria. And TAFE really had trouble because we might as well have gone to the moon. It was so difficult. But once we'd broken the barrier of going interstate with TAFE, we then, and the students and the teachers and I thought, why don't we go somewhere where we will be able to study the plants that we we're learning about, that we grow in our gardens. And over 60% of the plants that we grow in temperate Australian gardens come from Japan and China. Well, at that stage, China was still a little bit of a non-event for tourists, but Japan was a very new and open tourist destination. So we decided that we'd take students and teachers to Japan. But at the end of 1979, I retired and ended up on radio and television and writing magazines and the like, and we started the Garden Club a little bit later. But at the end of, around about August, September in 1980, I thought, goodness, we should pull that itinerary out of that tour to Japan and see if the public would like to go. And it was virtually as happenstance as that. So we started putting an itinerary together. I had the assistance of Len Weber and Megumi Bennett, Megumi being Japanese born, living and training with Len in Australia in bonsai. I taught horticulture to Megumi as well, so I knew them both. And with their assistance, we came up with a fantastic itinerary, even the hotels that we were able to suggest. And we gave it to a little family tour company in Gladesville in Sydney on Victoria Road. And they put the itinerary together with us and organised all the hardware to make the tour happen. Well, I've got to tell you, it was autumn. So for a start, there were none of the traditional plants that we expected to see, like the cherries and the azaleas and all of that. But what we did see, of course, being autumn, were the Japanese maples, the chrysanthemums, the chrysanthemum exhibitions, the likes of which the world is still yet to catch up 40 years later. Japan is so many centuries ahead in growing display chrysanthemums, both in Hibiya Park in Tokyo, in Nagoya Castle, and elsewhere, right across Japan. It's also a popular pastime by employees. So employees of shops and railway stations, all sorts of places, they bring their chrysanthemums to work that they've grown at home, and they just display them outside the shop, out in the street. No one touches them. And it's just an amazing experience to see the chrysanthemums producing this incredible colour, enormous flowers, bigger than dinner plates. And then when we go up into Nikko and into the countryside, this is the scenes that you start to experience. And there's just, well, in Australia, our mountains are covered with beautiful eucalypts that are greys and greens. But Japan's mountains, the Aizo Wakamatsu Plateau in particular, which is the main spine of Honshu, the main island of Japan, are covered with either one of about 10 species of maples and 3 species of conifers, the pines, the cryptomerias, and the Chamaecyparis. That's it. So you've got 3 conifer groups, which are evergreen, and then you've got all this mass of different types of maples, not only palmatum, but all the other maples that Japan is home to. And in autumn, you have this incredible colour splash intermingled with the evergreen conifers. It's just the most ethereal sight. I still love it to this day, and I love going back in autumn. But it was interesting, so many people, and that's another shot in autumn of a group, and that's the gold pavilion in the background, covered, yes, in real gold, 24 karat gold. And that particular group, just looking around, so many of them, as in all of our tours, once we got to about 1990, we realized that over 70% of our tours every year were filled with people who were returned. And that was an amazing and substantial change for our focus. We suddenly realized that we had this huge group, many thousands of people who wanted to travel with us just about anywhere every year. And Japan and then China and the rest of the world sort of opened up to us. But Japan was really the beginnings. Now, we all look a little bit strange in that shot, but can I tell you, we're the first Australian group to actually stay at a ryokan way back in 1980. We've had some incredible experiences in the ryokan. We've been at the same family ryokan for 40 years. the staff just love us. There's 3 of them on the right-hand side there. They join us and they encourage us, and they show us and demonstrate and teach us how to dance, how to sing in Japanese. And then at the end of the night, we have this incredible buffet, which goes on for about an hour and a half, an incredible meal. We used to sit on the tatami mat on the floor, but of course, as we've all got older, myself included, we're not so good at sitting on the floor. So they've got these little, beautiful little tables, beautifully polished tables that they bring and present our food. And so that night, we are all in Japanese attire, no Western gear at all. Although we do have one experience going back many years when a number of the ladies forgot to wear underwear, which was a little bit embarrassing. But moving right along, we've now reminded ourselves, and there's Carolyn up on the top left-hand corner who joined me one year and has taken this tour herself, Carolyn Dwyer, who's a lovely, lovely tour operator, tour leader with us. We do consume a fair bit of sake now that I see us holding those 2 bottles. But
And there's a few familiar faces in there too.
Very familiar. You're quite right, Livo. There's so many people that have joined us. Some sadly have passed on and they've been part of our family for many, many years. But there are so many people in that photograph who are just part of this huge...
Well, the interesting thing is that, you know, Japan's remained sort of a staple, hasn't it? And we've gone to Japan every year since, and sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, with different itineraries now.
Yes, we've worked out there's an early spring tour, the spring blossoms, and the gardens that we visit in Kanazawa in particular, which is one of possibly my favourite garden in the world, Kanazawa. Kenrikuen Garden is a magnificent landscape, beautifully designed and maintained impeccably. And all the gardens are in Japan. It's one of the great attractions is that you're looking at first-class horticulture the whole way.
Fair to say, right back then, 40 years ago, Alan Seal, wasn't he? Remember, darling, Alan was travelling the world with the Woman's Weekly tour. And no one was going anywhere near Japan. I think everyone was a bit frightened of Japan. And then you, with Megumi's help, sort of opened up the way for tourism, particularly garden tourism in Japan. I think that's where that's certainly where we started.
Yes, we've taken more tours to Japan than any other company in the world. And it's been a great journey. On the far left and in the central photograph is, in fact, like so many of our overseas tours, there are tour leaders and tour guides that have been with us. That's Mari-san. Mari Katsui has been our tour leader for about 20 years. She's a very dear friend, and she's been with so many of our tours. And she does, as you can see on the left-hand photograph there with Linda and myself, Mari-san does actually get dressed up in her traditional clothing. That entire outfit belongs to her grandmother. So it was handed down from her grandmother to her mother, and now she wears it. Her mother's still alive, lives in the North Island of Hokkaido. So Japan has been just an incredible adventure for us every year. So it was interesting, when we travel in spring, we realised that we don't get to see the peonies, we don't get to see the azaleas, and we don't get to see the wisteria. So it wasn't until a few years ago that we discovered the wisteria is, in fact, along with those other plants, a little bit later. Again, that's another group. And yes, we still see the snow. That's up in Shirakawa-go, which is a village that's about 400 years old. And you can see the gasho houses right down the bottom there that are shaped like prayer hands. They're enormous. You can get, when they re-thatch the roofs, they have about 150 to 200 people on the roof. That's how big those gasho houses are. And the village, this is a little lookout that we have looking down into the village with the snow around in spring. Some springs, it's a total whiteout when we go up into the mountains to Shirakawa-go. and where we stay at the Ryokan. It's just, Japan has just everything. So we have the spring, then we've got the late spring, early summer, which has a different group of plants altogether. And then you can see the azaleas there, which is a later display, and then we have autumn. So the 3 different seasons. There's dear Carolyn again. And
sorry, I'll go back to Carolyn for you.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's Carolyn there. Some years, and in fact, it'll be about 15 years, I guess, we started to seek out really traditional performance. And without a doubt, these beautiful ladies that have a history that goes right back about 1,000 years or more. And they entertain us. One lady in particular we have now sought out, and we've had her to come and perform and sing and dance for us in Kyoto. Pardon?
Is she a geisha?
Yes. She was in fact a Mako, but both those ladies you can see there, both the geishas have lipstick on both lips. So I've learned a lot about it now. So when you're in training, which is about 5 years, from about 15 or 16 years of age till you're 18 or 19, while you're in training, only the top of your lip can have lipstick on it. And when you're fully trained, by the time you're 18 or 19, you then can have lipstick on both lips, which is an interesting way to observe and understand the Mako, which is a geisha in training, and then a fully fledged trained geisha. And those 2 beautiful geisha with dear Carolyn.
It's a real cultural experience.
No, I think what has really struck me as probably the newest member of the Ross Tours team is just the relationships that you've set up over the years, because you have been going for so many years, and that you have such a good sense of the culture. You have these relationships and a really intimate knowledge of the different seasons. And I do think it was so interesting how you've all, and particularly Linda, has been so involved with creating these sort of later spring tours.
Itineraries, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
with that wisteria, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's not color coded. It's just the site that it is. You may have, in fact, you can still find them on Better Homes and Gardens, because I chased Linda around about 3 years ago throughout Japan. We filmed the azalea temple in the bottom left-hand corner. We didn't get to do the peonies because they were a river of peonies right up in the northwest of Honshu. We did film the sakura, which is the little phlox, the pink phlox in the bottom right-hand corner, overlooking Mount Fuji, which is just the most incredible location with the square miles of alpine phlox. And then, of course, the wisteria. Behind Linda are the blue Nemophila, which is the hills of Nemophila, which is on the Pacific coast. So we do a lot of darting about in that late spring, early summer tour.
Graham, I have a photo there for you.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
is incredible.
We have filmed all of these, except, as I said, the peony. So if you, for anyone that's joining us today, you can find those stories on Better Homes and Gardens on 7+. If you go onto 7+ on Channel 7 and then into their website, you'll find those stories in Better Homes and Gardens. That site is just incredible. Oh, they're the people weeding the hills of perennial phlox. They've now got 5 different varieties of phlox. The colour from white, many pinks, and then the really dark pink that you can see in the front. And they're little ants, the people getting in there and weeding, all volunteers. And it's something that we only have pretty much in our botanic gardens in Australia, a volunteer system operating. But in Japan, all of these gardens have volunteers and groups of them. And they are so dedicated to having these gardens looking just so schmick for the tourists that come in to see them.
Oh. Well, the next slide, I actually took it upon myself to make a slide dedicated to Sandra, because Sandra, you are an absolute inspiration, because I know I've heard stories of you just single-handedly getting on a plane with a suitcase and off you go. You're just, I think of you as our fearless leader. So I wanted to collect a few photos from some of the travels that you've done, just to show people all the different countries. So I'm actually, just to give you an idea of the time, the one on the left is Sandra, you at Monet's garden in Givany, and that's 2010. And then we just all love this photo of you overlooking the canal in Bruges, and that was 2009. And then as is the photo down in the left corner of you overlooking Florence, that was 2009. You're in the, let me see, the Butchart Garden was even earlier, 2006.
Wow.
And then the little narrow one is you in Piet Olduf's garden in Holland. In, let me see, 2009. And there you are, the last photo is you in Russia in 2007. So I hope you don't mind that I put all of those together.
Oh, you know, I've just, it's been just such an amazing, when you see, you know, all those beautiful places. And you're right, Kirsty, I did do a lot of those recce's on my own, driving on the wrong side of the road in these, like I remember in Prague and Czech Republic, doing a recce, checking out all these gardens and hotels, and oh my goodness, it was quite challenging.
And Sandra, I mean, you're so impressive, because of course this was before mobile phones, before GPSs. So you're there, not speaking the language, literally holding a map, working out where all these fabulous gardens are that you're going to take your guests.
And that was the lovely thing, crafting an itinerary and then taking people, with the loveliest people that have come with me to these places. And then these itineraries we've sort of polished a bit over the years. And now we've got all these lovely tour leaders, not just Graham and I. We've got Claire, we've got Colin, we've got Libby, we've got Carolyn, we've got Lenny. We've got all these beautiful people to take our tours for us. So thank you for that little montage of memories.
Can I chip in?
Thank you for being such an inspiration. And really, it's so much of this is you. So thank you.
Well, that's mostly Europe, apart from that one in Butchart Gardens. And I have been lucky enough to lead lots of tours through Europe, and I still love all those. One day it'll all open again. I can't wait to go back. And it's been lovely to take, you know, people like Claire and Michael McCoy, take them with me and show them how we run this company, and, you know, what it's like, and would they like to do it?
Yeah.
Well, Claire said yes, didn't you, darling?
I did indeed.
You said yes?
I did. Sold.
Libby, darling Libby, my gosh.
Well,
You have done so much travelling with us, Lib.
I've been with you for all but 20 years. And my first training trip I did on my own.
Yes, exactly.
Where was that to, Libby?
Tasmania.
I know.
And then I went off to southern India after I'd done northern India on a recce, and my husband thought he'd never see me again. I spent a night on a rice boat with 3 men looking after me, and I was just like the queen. It was amazing. But the most challenging was going to Nova Scotia, because it's an awfully long way. It's as far away from Australia as you can be without coming back. And I went over there, and I think I had 4 days to drive. I think I drove 700 kilometres to put together an itinerary.
Doing a recce.
So, and the tour was just magic in fall. Yes.
Beautiful.
I've seen the world through its gardens. It's just been the most wonderful, wonderful experience for me. And I hope there's lots more.
Oh.
I don't mind just Australia at the moment, but it would be lovely to get back to places like Europe and India and Borneo. Yeah, I've had some amazing experiences.
Oh, thank you, Lib. Well, Colin, we're actually going to talk about Chelsea next, because I know, Graham, that was a very early tour, and you were very instrumental in bringing Chelsea to the Australian audiences. So, and since then, Colin, you've been quite involved in the Chelsea tours, I understand.
Yes, I've obviously been, I think I've been 8 of the last 10 years, so I've been very, very lucky to go there. Probably one of the things, just talking about what Sandra's just said, is people probably don't realise what goes into making a tour and the background. I know just developing a couple of the later England tours this year, when I was asked to put them together after one of my tours, it was an amazing experience travelling the country, checking out hotels, checking out parking, scoring them. You know, people don't realise, you know, whether you can get a coach into that hotel, you know, what the garden's like, and they're actually all, we were scoring them, and you're coming up with a ratio which then goes back to Sandra and Graham, and all of these things, you know, 4 or 5 hotels in each city to get the best quality. And that's probably been the big difference with anything on Ross Garden Tours to anywhere else and any other company I've known, is the actual detail that goes into finding the best hotels, the best gardens. You know, again, is that garden up to standard? It hasn't been maintained properly for quick, so it doesn't go on the list. People don't realise, you know, it's not just picking any garden you see, it's actually the detail that goes into that to find the best garden at its peak, and also new gardens as well and new itineraries. And there always been, whether it's been Japan or the UK, always at the forefront of new gardens coming through, as we've even found, you know, with Prince Charles Garden at Highgrove. Again, a few companies have got in there now, but it was always Graham, the experience, the links, and just the dedication and the knowledge and the contacts they have in these countries to actually get in these gardens, which makes all the difference, and why you're so well looked after, because you're always in the middle of each city, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks, Colin. Well, Graham, I just love this shot of you. That is, let me look at the date. That was you at Chelsea in 2007.
Yes, it's interesting. I started visiting Chelsea very early in the 80s with a news crew from Channel 7 in Australia, with a cameraman from London, the chief of the Channel 7's newsroom office, the European Bureau, and that was for a program called 11 AM. And they were quite happy to fund a cameraman. I had to produce ourselves and get ourselves there. So fortunately, we had the tour company to get us across. We stayed in a shocking little walk-up hotel near Marble Arch. In fact, just a stone's throw from Marble Arch. And there are so many experiences that I had that year. But the whole thing, which I've written about in my memoir, but the whole thing was, I realised when we went back again with Channel 7's 11 AM program, I realised that this was a destination, of course, not only for the tour company to include the RHS Chelsea show and the other shows that the RHS were developing, but also to try and get those thousands and tens, hundreds of thousands of people in Australia who would never travel and never have the opportunity to travel, to actually see this, the highest standard of horticulture I know of any show anywhere on the planet. And that's when Better Homes and Gardens agreed. And the funding, I could write another book on the difficulties of getting a crew there each year, which we did for 14 years in a row. Getting to that spot where I'm standing in the bottom photograph means that we have to grovel, and I mean grovel, because we are from the antipodes in Australia and we're still convicts, and we have to grovel to the BBC to get to their vantage point. But I must admit, that particular year, Alan Titchmarsh, who is now a very good friend, persuaded the BBC to let the colonial convicts up onto that stand to actually film that amazing vista, which looks down into the Great Pavilion over on the left-hand side. And it's a great vantage point that we're able to use. But it's just been a series of incredible experiences. The one with Sandra in the top right-hand corner with the Chelsea pensioner was, in fact, in 2008, a display that we put together. Linda did the design. Kent was living in London, building the tour company's footprint in the UK and in Europe. And he actually arranged for all the plants. The backdrop was an enormous photograph of the botanic gardens in Victoria that's out in the countryside.
Cranbourne.
And it has, sorry?
Cranbourne.
Yes, Cranbourne. And it has that incredible desert landscape, which we reproduced in a huge canvas. I wonder where that photograph is, because it...
So this was actually our own display at Chelsea. So Ross Garden Tours, we put up our own display. We only ever did it once.
Was that 2012?
Was it?
I don't know. It might have been before that.
What does it say, Kirsty?
I think, Sandra, I've got 2000 and, hang on, with the Chelsea pensioner, 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
That's when
I remember that. Yes.
The fascinating thing is that when we decided on the plants, which were basically the plants that were in the photograph growing at Cranbourne in Victoria, and we wanted the plants from the photograph to actually spill into the garden and into the display. And the plants were the latest hybrids of kangaroo paws and straw flowers and helichrysums and things. And Kent sourced them from Italy, Spain, Portugal, and France. And they all came to Heathrow, and then he picked them up in a little van, and he had them in his flat, on his veranda in the flat, absolutely chock-a-block. There are thousands of plants in pots. And then with the help, I must admit, of some of our friends who had been at Chelsea for over 100 years, some of their staff came and helped Kent put the display together. It was a lot of fun, and it really cemented our relationship as a family and as a tour company with the RHS and with the other exhibitors. And they've continued to be such great supporters and great friends over all those years since then.
Thanks, Graham. Well, I did find some fun photos of the people that you've met at Chelsea.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, wow. Well, Sir Cliff was, it was about a month before his interesting court case, which he eventually won, by the way. Sir Cliff was just amazing, an absolute professional. The two of us sang for about 30 seconds, and then we decided we'd stop that. But we bumped into him, and he was there the whole day. And we bumped into him about 6 hours later. And as he walked past, he said, "Oh, g'day, Graham. Oh, and g'day, Cass." And he remembered the entire crew that we'd taken from Australia. He was just, he was a real professional.
Like the one with the Ab Fab girls.
Yeah, the Ab Fab girls.
I love that.
Yeah, dear Joanna. She's a real, she's been a friend for a long, long time. And Joanna Lumley is always at Chelsea, always ready for a chat and always ready for a bit of mischief. She's a real scallywag and such a lot of fun. The photograph on the right, which you can't quite see, is also a very dear friend who is closely attached to the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children at North Rocks, because he donated Rocky Woofit, which was a cartoon character he created, and he donated that to the North Rocks, where one of his grandchildren is a student. The Chelsea pensioners on the bottom left, Joanna Griggs and Linda. Linda had a tour there. Sandra had a tour there. We had 2 tours that year, and Joanna Griggs came across to join in some of the Better Homes and Gardens fun.
That's at Chelsea?
That's all at Chelsea, yes, all at Chelsea. The bottom shot, again, is the Italian chef, whose name I should remember.
He cooks for Jamie Oliver, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yes.
Carluccio, is it?
Carluccio, yeah.
And I'm not a chef, I'm not a cook.
Thank you, darling. Carluccio, Antonio Carluccio, and he's there about every second year at Chelsea, and just one of a huge family of media friends that we've developed over many years of travelling.
Michael Parkinson, yeah.
Mark Parky on the right, yeah. Parky, the story, unfortunately we're sort of blocking that image, but Parky's holding a rose which is called Parky. He arrived to launch the rose. He had never seen it before. He had no idea of its qualities. And very quickly, I'll just tell you, I interviewed Parky about the rose, and he very cleverly repeated my question in his answer. And I said, oh, it's a beautiful perfume floribunda. And he said, yes, it's a beautiful, you're quite right, Graham, it's a perfect floribunda with perfume. And he went right on and answered all my questions with answers from the question. And then at the end of it, the BBC interrupted our interview, and we were having a lot of fun because I'd met Michael several times before, and he was happy to do the interview. And then the BBC interviewed him, and they asked him exactly the same questions. But by this stage, he had already been trained, you see. So literally 10 minutes later, and they said, oh, what sort of rose is it? Oh, it's a white perfumed floribunda. Don't you realise that?
Well done, Graham.
And he just turned around. He just turned around and gave me this huge wink.
Oh, that's great.
So many fun shots.
Yeah, so many. And because from when I was over there, when Dean Harold, he did his show, so that was really fun. And because a big part of when the Ross tour groups go to Chelsea, I know that you get to go into the show gardens for the Australians. Is that right?
Yes, we certainly do. And that was because Wes Fleming, who was then originally funding the displays, was very happy to, because he knew that we were filming for Australian television. And he and his mum and dad have been such close friends of ours for the best part of 40 years. And when his mum and dad were there, and then Wes was there, and then all of the staff, he always invited us onto his stand. In that photograph, Sandra, on the left, Michael McCoy in the back right-hand corner.
Yep.
Colin in the left.
There's Colin.
And my daughter.
There's Colin.
There's Colin.
Michael's right over the other side.
There's Michael over there.
And Colin's three girls in the front.
Yes.
All in the 20s, yes. They were the only kids apart from your own to go on a Ross Garden tours at that stage. So.
Yeah, they were.
That was a lovely year.
And Colin's wife.
That year.
All there, yeah.
And you know, the photograph before, Kirsty, all my group were wearing pink T-shirts that Wes Fleming gave us to wear as sort of, Aussie ambassadors for his stand, because he won a gold medal.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was lovely, and we all wore our, well, I didn't, I noticed, but everybody else wore a T-shirt, and we were on his stand. It was lovely.
Yeah.
We did that many years, didn't we?
We did, and they still continue to allow us on. The bottom photograph, of course, is Charlie Albone with Sandra and some of the group on his display. He's the only Australian that has gone back successive years, and he won a silver gilt for both those beautiful gardens that he created.
Yep.
And Colin, it looks like you and Sandra are having it tough there together at Chelsea that day.
I think if you go.
I remember that, Colin.
It wasn't a Pimm's?
It was a Pimm's.
Oh, good.
We were drinking a jug of Pimm's, weren't we?
A jug of Pimm's, yeah.
I can't see that photo because Libby's in front of it, but I remember it.
Can I move over? Move over, darling. Yeah.
No.
You can put all the photos at the bottom of the screen for all the panelists, so it might block a little less if you do that.
It was a very lovely photo, and I remember.
Well, you fiddle with that. I'll go on to the next photo, because when Ross Tours goes to Chelsea, it's not just Chelsea. They travel all over England, and there are different itineraries that they do. And so, for instance, we've got Sandra at the top there with Marilyn Abbott at West Green. She's also swanning around there with Fergus Garrett at Great Dixter. So it's a lot of fun. And I know you go up north and then even down to Cornwall. And Colin did send in some of the photos that, here's one group, Sandra. Let me just check the date of that. Let me see. That was you with your group in 2014 having lunch on the River Cam.
Oh, on the River Cam in Cambridge.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh my gosh, yes, that's a beautiful restaurant right there, and it's where the boats, what do you call it when they do that boating?
Oh, the punting.
The punting on the River Cam at Cambridge. And we had lunch and we had that group photo. We obviously been to Chelsea. And then we were continuing around England as we do. Yeah. Lovely.
And then, Colin, this was one of your groups when you were leading one of the Chelsea tours.
Now,
I know this was actually a Northern England and Scotland tour.
Ah, okay, all right.
That was up in Cumbria, so a beautiful little spot, probably one of my favourite gardens around the place. So, you know, beautiful, just an enchanting garden. So that's up, no, not far from Windermere, so a beautiful little spot.
Oh, it looks beautiful. Mm.
And then I know, Colin, this was in Bibury, is that right?
Bibury.
Oh,
Yeah, Bibury must be probably the best place if you want to get pampered. You know, it's just the ultimate place. The beautiful cottages, the amazing, just intricate little gardens and stone walls. And I think one of the things I always look forward to must be the best morning tea of anyone in the world.
Is that what the
Certainly is.
ladies from the garden club, they put on a morning tea for you?
Yes,
Ah.
the garden club, it's one of the amazing things. So one year they actually had an open garden. We normally see 2 or 3 in Bibury, and we get, you know, amazingly looked after. It's a beautiful spot, just so idyllic, and the actual cottages and houses around the Arlington Row. But one of the things is, one year it was the actual open garden scheme, and we had a look at a few the year before. And then when we went there, and we had to walk a little bit further, but there was most amazing little gardens, even some new gardens, which looked like they'd been there 25 years with the intricate stonework. But then I always said to them on that day, just don't eat too much today because you'll get well and truly looked after. And then the ladies, I said the local ladies there, and again, it's the local knowledge, the contacts take you there. Tea, as much tea, cakes and coffee, and I don't think I needed to eat for the next 2 or 3 days after that. So it was amazing.
You know, that reinforces my view that there's something very special about walking through a garden with the people who garden it, and in Bibury, and of course with Marilyn Abbott, going to the garden and hearing about their failures as well as their successes is just so special. And I think people get so much out of going to a garden and walking around with the owners. And I think travelling in Australia, that's one of the enormous advantages of the gardens we go to in Australia, is having the owners walk around them with you. And Bibury is a really good example of that. Mm.
That's so true, Liv, because I always feel behind every garden is a story.
Oh,
and there's
yeah.
a person that created that garden. And that's what's so engaging and fun and special, is to meet those people and hear those stories. Oh, is that little Cooper?
yes, it is.
So, sorry, hang on, let's go back, Colin. You were, these were some of the photos that you chose from some of your tours.
Yeah, so there's a few, probably quite interesting one. The one on the bridge in the bottom corner, that's an amazing garden. Anyone know where Heligan? That's actually the bridge at the bottom, so it's a bit of a trek. And I actually did a video, I know, on Instagram at the time, and it was just such a fun and amazing day there, and trekking through like this lush rainforest and the story behind Heligan. You know, they absolutely, I loved it down in Cornwall, and hopefully not next year, maybe the year after, we'll be back down there again to actually have a look at Heligan and some of the other amazing gardens in Cornwall. So along with the Eden Project, you know, it was fantastic, sort of lush tropical jungle down there, and quite amazing walking over the bridge. A few people were a little bit wary at first, but we finally got them over. So that was part of our Chelsea tour in Cornwall. Also part of the Chelsea tour in the bottom right was, you can see, a gentleman on our tour at Hidcote, and Hidcote Manor, and a beautiful little round pond garden at the moment with those beautiful little birds clipped there. And he just had to have the photograph in between there. So that's the perfect shot. The man with 2 birds, he pulled 2 birds. So he thought he'd done extremely well. So he was an amazing guy. He was actually, I think he was 82, and I think it was the fittest guy I've ever seen in my life. He was doing his yoga and stretching every morning. So if he's watching, you know, he did a fantastic job. Up in the top right-hand side, one of my favourite gardens in Scotland, again, was a little bit by luck when we first ended up having a look at it, which is Kinross House. So some of the pictures I still got as a screensaver on my computer at the moment. I just love St Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned just on an island off there. It's just the most amazing garden, which has had a bit of a refit. I think you can hire it out for, it's only about 150,000 a night if you like a Justin Bieber, but the gardens are immaculate. They've got, again, quite a European feel now with a lot of grasses, Pete Hildorf style, so it's quite nice, very attractive, and it's also got a French feel with the accommodation spa there. So that's one place I know I'm going to eventually book in for a holiday I want to go to. The beautiful giant Amazonian lilies at Kew Garden, you can't really go past Kew. Just the conservatory there is absolutely phenomenal. And every time, if I get a chance when I'm in London, I love to actually have a look and wander through there. The Princess Diana Conservatory is absolutely amazing. And also the older conservatory there, which is, the Palm House, which has been redeveloped over the last few years as well. Another one, the top left, is me, obviously, with my trusty camera, talking about plants. And I know we're all very, very lucky in this whole thing to be, people always say to me, you're very, very lucky. And I say, I know, you get a chance to go on tour looking at gardens, doing things you love and talking about them. So I appreciate every moment when you go on tour to tell people about the things you love. And wherever you go on a garden, you're always learning. And I know we'll see a little bit later, the first tour I went on with Graham up north in WA, that's one of the things. Every time you go, I taught at TAFE for 17 years, you never stop learning. You never stop learning new plants. So everywhere you go, it's an adventure and you're learning more all the time. So it's really absorbing, as you said, the culture, the time, and really learning about the plants. And I've never seen, it's great when you say, I've never seen that before. And people say, well, you haven't. It's an amazing adventure. And I can't wait to actually get back to some of these places. Hopefully, if not next year, the year after. So I can't wait.
That's brilliant, Colin. And of course, the tours are all about having fun, are they not, Libby?
Yes. I'm so pleased you put that one in. Well, it happened to be at Helligan, the garden that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Colin, and it was World Naked Gardening Day. And our friend Tim Pickles at Pickles Nursery in Campbelltown always makes a big thing about World Naked Gardening Day. So we had this photo taken and I sent it to him and said, this is what you need on World Naked Gardening Day, Tim. A plant with big leaves, the biggest garnerer I have ever seen. It was a lot of fun, that tour. It is great, isn't it? I wasn't naked, as you can see. It was a bit cold.
I love it, Liv. Yeah. And Graham, you are going to have to tell us how you got roped into having a game of Quidditch. And is that in Oxford?
This is in Alnwick Castle, yes. Look, it takes some time to learn how to fly on a broomstick, but eventually I got airborne. The biggest problem is once you've travelled a few metres, it's coming down to earth. It's quite a solid connection as you land back on ground again. But of course, there's a lot of secrets in showing you. So I won't go into that now. But Alnwick Castle, wow, what an amazing destination! An incredible garden, a very complex garden with a children's garden, and of course. Overlaying that, a rose garden, an amazing cascade, a huge cascade, one of the largest in the UK. And then, of course, overlaid over that is Harry Potter and the whole Harry Potter experience, which still funds. The castle's lived in, by the way, by the family. They've only been there about 800 years, but they lovely, lovely people.
Thanks, Graham. So I thought we'd continue our trip down memory lane and a little bit closer to home. And this was, Colin sent me this. He's with Graham on a training trip, I believe, Colin, on the way to Port Hedland, and this is 2006.
Yeah,
wow.
I don't recognise him.
No, a few less wrinkles, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
Who is that person?
Disappeared. I don't know.
Someone told me it was Crocodile Dundee.
Well,
such a great shot.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing. I pulled it out. I was looking through some photos the other day, and I thought I've just got to send that one in. It was one of those things. I met Graham, I think, in the Duxton in Perth when he was down here once, and I had a chat to him. And I know when I was in Melbourne working, you were asking for some tour guides, and so I ended up having a chat, and then I met him in Duxton Hotel in Perth. And he said, "Do you fancy coming along next year?" And I said, "I'd love to," and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and and through that. And I remember Graham was saying when we were actually on there, he said it was the hardest tour he actually did at that time. I think we're doing about 5,000 Ks, 3 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah, 6,000 Ks. And there, everybody gets out of the bus. And look, the minute you stop for a wee stop, everybody gets out botanising, looking at plants and picking up. There's Sturt's Desert Pea down the bottom right-hand corner of the photograph. It's Western Australia is just an amazing adventure. And Colin's been doing that tour for us. We haven't done the big outback one for quite. Look at the mud on the back of that vehicle on the top left-hand corner.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's. I just love. I miss the red earth. I miss it really, really so much. And in fact, I know my whole family does. That incredible gorge, and then of course the Sturt's Desert Pea. I can't wait to get back to Western Australia. And we stopped doing the big Broome to Perth tour because the mining companies took over all the motels. We couldn't go. Royce couldn't get a motel in Western Australia because the mining companies took them all over. Slowly, as those mines have finished or they've moved and got their own accommodation, we've now managed to see some of those motels opening up. I'd love to do that journey once more from Broome to Perth.
Well, talk about Broome. He's one of your salty characters.
Yes, that's salty with Sandra's Pearl.
Gosh.
That's back from 2002, you guys.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I tell you what, that pearl cost me a bomb. But it's a beautiful. That was
wearing it. I should be wearing it.
Yeah, dear old Salty. He was
you
one of the original.
Wearing that shirt, Graham.
Yes.
Very groovy.
Shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that shirt. Yeah,
almost as good as Colin shorts.
The Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Hawaii. But yeah, Salty was one of the original pearlers, and now it's interesting because we've been doing this such a long time. They were thinking in Broome of opening up a pearl lugger or two. They didn't have many of the original ones left, and they weren't quite sure just what they were going to do, but more importantly, whether it was going to be popular. And I climbed over the fence. It was very, very early in its development, and the company, the Pearl Company, who opened that exhibition, put Salty in there. And I said, look, we'll come back. I gave him some tips on what travellers and what our travellers would like to see. And in the end, they had a wonderful video and all these collections and a huge safe full of pearls. So it was always a bit of an attraction to buy pearls there. But Broome is a real frontier part of Australia.
Unbelievable.
And, pioneering country.
In the top corner.
Sorry, Colin.
I took a picture there, and because you didn't know how good Graham was, that's a picture of Graham walking on water. Can you see that?
Oh, Colin.
And I just found this one. Someone had sent in, and it's just, I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. An evening in Western Australia, one of the homesteads.
And you know that homestead is gone.
Yeah.
Has it?
Yes, it's in from Carnarvon, and they're right on the river, and the house had been hit by floods. It was about, it was over 200 years old, the home. A beautiful homestead, very big cattle station. It had been sheep and they'd converted to cattle, and it was an enormous enterprise, one of the largest cattle stations, reasonably close to the coast, but it still had a lot of inland area. But it's right on the river, and that river came up one year and just took the whole house, eventually took the whole house away.
I think it was 2010 or 2011, so that was in Gascoyne Junction.
Gascoyne Junction, that's it. Thanks, mate.
I remember Lockie was the guy, and that was the best steak I've ever had in my life, I think, at that place. So.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Cole.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So, Lib, you've been quite busy.
Well, this one on the bottom left's a bit of a furphy because everything else is in the outback, and there are the Sturt Desert Peas. I'm lying in a dry riverbed at the Golden Gully out of Tibooburra. And here we are, me in the flowers, the wall-to-wall flowers. You just come around a corner and there they are, where you least expect them. And the photo opportunities are incredible. And here we are in Queensland. We've just come up past Cordillo Downs from Inaminka, and that's the big turn-off onto where we turn left to go to Birdsville. And it's always, as Graham says, we have to have an arm wrestle to decide who does this tour, but I've been going to the gym for the last umpteen years, and I've done this tour 8 times now.
Wow.
And this vehicle we call the Beast has now been pensioned off.
Yes.
And we've had some amazing experiences, including bringing this vehicle as the biggest vehicle they ever took on the little punt across the flooded Cooper Creek, which was one of the most stressful, incredible days of my life. But there we go from the outback. This is Prince Edward Island in Canada.
Liv, I was going to say, what's the story with the red flats?
What's the story? Well, we went to, this is where Anne of Green Gables originated. And there was a lovely house and garden and big tourist thing, but it was the centenary, 2008, the centenary of Anne of Green Gables. And they said, now who's the tour leader? And I said, oh, me. And they dumped this hat and red plaits on my head. And up at the back here are photos of every tour leader that had been in that year with the Anne of Green Gables hat on. So there I am. I'm up there now somewhere with the photo of me pretending I'm Anne of Green Gables. So very much not the outback, is it?
Not the outback, but I just had to throw that in because I loved it so
it's
much.
Hilarious. I don't know where you found it, actually, Kirsty, because I certainly haven't got it here. But the outback trip is iconic, and Sturt Stony Desert to me is one of the most amazing landscapes in the world. And here we are. This is actually out of Coonabarabran in the National Park. Oh, I'm having a mental block. We have morning tea there and we do a walk, and the wattle is just extraordinary at that time of year. Yes, Warrumbungles. And that's our second morning. And there's Sam, who, as you say, we get to know our cohorts. Sam and I did, of the 8 tours I've done, Sam and I have done 7, and he has been an absolute rock because we've had some really incredible flat tires and boggings and various things. Scrapes, you might say, but it's a huge adventure, and it was 16 days and we usually do about 5,000 kilometres. And
you are at Birdsville
pub.
Hotel, Liv.
Always a wonderful moment to have a Cooper's Ale at the Birdsville pub when you finally arrived. And it's an iconic place, and amazing that the airport is right across the road. Yes, I just adore that trip, and you never know what it's going to throw at you.
And Liv, I just love this country setting here. This is in Kyneton.
Well, this is outback Queensland, and this is at a property called Kyneton, and it's really amazing. You drive through this dry, it was in drought, dry country, and you come to a homestead that's as green and green with beautiful flowers. This place is extraordinarily beautiful. We sit out there and have lunch. One night we had dinner, and this is the oasis that the men come back to at the end of the day, and they say it's so important for their mental health. And they have a bore, and the bore water's not too salty. And it's out of Barcaldine. And I'm not sure, I think in our tour in September next year, we're going to a number of properties, and this, I hope, will be one of them. She brings out the Royal Dalton and the Waterford Crystal, of which she has masses and masses. And she says, we don't entertain anymore. It's lovely to have people to use it. So we all sit there and think it's heaven on earth in outback Queensland. So that's going to be a tour I will thoroughly look forward to next year. And we're going to Birdsville as well. That's going to be wonderful, yes.
That sounds a lot of fun.
I'm going to go back to the gym and build myself up to freaking vessels.
Oh dear.
Well, you've got some competition for these Tasmania tours, because I know Claire's involved with these and Libby's been running them with you two. And what I love about this photograph is down there on the right is Grightstow, but only in 2010. So it's absolutely staggering to see how that garden has developed so beautifully. I mean, it's such a feature of our January Tasmania tour nowadays.
Yes, Claire brought her own group. You brought your own group down, Claire.
I did, yes. We came down in January before COVID hit. We managed to squeeze that one in, so it was fantastic. All had to have the all-important lavender ice cream and a walk through all the beautiful lavender fields, but it was breathtaking. And I think a lot of the Queenslanders, I think I had some Sydney folk with me, but a lot of Queenslanders just thoroughly enjoyed this tour. It was definitely something they talked about wanting to do again. I think it's one of those tours. I think you want to go again and experience that. And yeah, definitely looking forward to doing more of those ones.
Oh, good, good, good. I do have another pic of you in the garden, Claire, but before we do, this is another blast from the past. Graham, this is, let me check my date, 2002 on Cradle Mountain.
Oh, look at your legs, Graham. Oh, haven't seen those for a while.
No, yeah, exactly. Yes, well, moving right along, good gracious. It's one of the few places where I get the shorts out. Just looking at those faces of those people there, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th person in from the left, Sandra.
Sarah.
Dear old Sarah.
Yep.
So many. I remember her son delivered literally his mother, who's Sarah there on the left, and he said, "Oh well, good luck." And I thought, "Oh goodness, this is going to be." Sarah eventually went to Canada with us twice. She went to Japan. She went to Tasmania. She traveled the world. She had a second lease on life after she started traveling with us. It was just wonderful to have Sarah join us. Now, right smack in the middle, the gentleman in the front row with the hat on is John Shorter. Now, I can't see his wife there, but John is the person who introduced Royal Dalton to Australia. He used to travel by train and walk all of the country homesteads in Australia selling Royal Dalton. He originally flew to England from Rose Bay in one of those big seaplanes, which took 8 days to get from Rose Bay in Sydney to the Thames in London. And he was hoping to get the contract for Australia for Royal Dalton. He was only young. He was only late teens, early 20s. And he was given it. And he eventually had the largest collection. Oh, there's his wife just to the left. He eventually donated the largest collection of Royal Dalton to the museum here in Sydney. And he had a marvellous showroom in Clarence Street in the city, which was called Shorter House. They also travelled with us. He and his wife travelled with us to China, Japan, Canada, Tasmania and Western Australia. They travelled with us a lot. Lovely, lovely people.
Well, Libby, you sent this photo through and it just touches on about that whole experience of sharing a garden with the owner.
Yes. You look at the faces here. Claire, you'll remember Canyon Lee. We went in pouring rain there on a recce the year before, and last year I took this group, and this is Pav. He and his wife have built the most extraordinary house of Huon pine and jarrah. He got a truckload of jarrah from Western Australia, and the house is amazing. But they have an arboretum and a really, really wonderful garden with some very unusual trees. And he regaled us. I had so much trouble getting this group to leave to go to the next garden because he was just such a gorgeous man, and he had us all just enthralled. And that's what I really love about this photo, that he's talking passionately and we're just appreciating it. And I think that's something I hear a lot from garden owners, that they love our tour groups coming to them because they're interested. They don't just go into the garden and go, oh yeah, that's it, yes, let's go. They hang on every word. And as we know, people love other people to love what they do. And so if they're talking about their garden and they have an audience that are really appreciating it, it makes the visit so rich and just so wonderful. And yes, I love that photo. It was a lovely day. Kangaroo.
Perfect. Thank you for sending that through, Liv. That was just wonderful. Now, we will keep moving along a little. So we're just going to have a quick look at, before we do, I've got 2 more photos of Tasmania. So much more recent. So we're going from 2002 to this year. So this year it was Claire's with Matt and David at Wychwood, and there's Graham and Sandra with Deb and Scott at Old Wesley Vale.
Aren't they amazing? Yes.
Yeah.
Morning tea that Matt and David put on blew everybody away. Seriously. Is it Noreen? Is it Noreen that we have?
Yes, Noreen.
We couldn't get her on the bus, Graham and Sandra. She was going to stay with these 2 young fellows. Oh, gosh. She goes, well, I was a bit younger, but they were just lovely. And we mentioned before, liking to go and see people's gardens because there's a story behind them. And I think with these young lads taking over Wychwood, it's not only the story, but I think each plant had a story and things that they were adding to the garden. And they were just the loveliest hosts. And like I said, I think they'd made their own fig paste and, oh boy, yeah, they'd done all sorts of fabulous things. So they were a real delight to visit. So looking forward to seeing them again, hopefully this year coming.
We've just been on the phone to them at the end of last week, and they've agreed to have us down to film their garden in January in 2021. So we're going to film their beautiful garden at Wychwood.
Excellent, very television worthy.
Beautiful. I'm sure we're going to look forward to that. So we're going to scoot across the water and head over to Kangaroo Island and a little more into South Australia, because I know this is one of your favourite trips.
That's the one I've just done, and it was off again and on again because of COVID, and they finally said we could go into South Australia, and we got in and we came home the minute COVID struck Adelaide, so we were very lucky. Amazing. The tour is just wonderful. Barossa Valley and Adelaide, and the gardens we visit are just extraordinary, but the real hero is Kangaroo Island.
Yeah.
And Sophie Thompson put us in touch with a couple who are looking after the new community garden in Pandana, where the local residents were evacuated 3 times in January. And, you know, we saw where the fires had been. And yes, we met so many more locals this year, and we'll continue to visit their gardens because we did a bit more homework and just making the tours slightly different every time, adding things and fine-tuning them makes the tour better every time. And there are 2 girls on this tour that did it 2 years ago, and they said, oh, it's been lovely to come back and see it again. And yes, remarkable rocks are just remarkable. And the tour group just loved every minute of it. It's such a really great holiday for them. Yes, wonderful tour.
That's brilliant, Liv, because as you say, the itinerary is constantly changing, so it can be down in the McLaren Vale. These are some photos that I found in the Barossa, and these are from 2008, 2000, and actually, Sandra, you in the Heritage Garden, that's from 2005.
Oh, the Heritage Garden.
Oh, Walter Duncan's garden in Clare Valley.
That's it. Walter and
My Flinders Rangers tour's going there. They're reopening it. It closed for a while. And I think Walter's quite elderly, and I think they've got someone looking after it now. And it's
been an
on my itinerary.
Yes.
Stunning.
Clare Valley. Yep.
I learned to answer a question when we filmed in that garden with Walter, and everyone asked him separately, oh, Walter, what's your favourite rose? And he gave the same answer 22 times to 22 guests. And his answer is, the last one I smelt. Which is a good answer for a rose lover, you know. Yes, the last one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, and talking of roses, because I know it's a big feature on the South Australia tour, because this is in Alroo.
This is
their beautiful.
Oh, Alroo, yes.
Yes, that's me. And those 2 sisters, Helen and Margaret, oh my gosh, they've been everywhere with us. And that's Alroo Farm. And Ruth Irving is just out of shot, and she's the owner of Alroo Farm. And
she's a character.
Isn't she a character?
Yeah.
Her enthusiasm is just, you could put it in a bottle and be fabulous. So that's part of that lovely South Australian itinerary.
Yes, that's wonderful.
So just moving over to New Zealand, because I thought we couldn't have a bit of a retrospective and not include Michael and all his wonderful trips to New Zealand. So probably if someone else knows a little more about any of these pictures, but I found them and I love them. And I love the one of Michael helping the lady on the drawbridge.
Isn't that a scream?
I thought they were dancing.
I did too.
They just all fall in love with him. He's
Yes.
so lovely to them. And of course, he's been taking our tours around the world, Chelsea and Europe and now New Zealand every year to the beautiful Garden Marlborough, which is just the most amazing festival of gardens in the northern part of the South Island, just Marlborough, where those beautiful wines come from. Fabulous gardens.
And we can't talk about our tours without the amazing Singapore tour that Linda has created.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully we'll be there next year.
Yes, it's going to open, I hope.
Okay, all right. So we'll wait and see what happens. But I know that's been a very popular tour, and Linda's been going there every year. Now, for how many years, Sandra, has Linda now been in Singapore? Visiting Singapore?
It's a long time now, isn't it? About 10 years?
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
And they stay in that wonderful hotel, the Park Royal, that just drips with foliage and plants. Yes.
An amazing hotel in Singapore with beautiful gardens and one of those infinity pools. A really lovely, just a week, but it's a beautiful week in Singapore.
I always tell Royce when he's looking at hotels to find out what the swimming pool's like, and he tells me, just go away, Libby. You won't have time for swimming pools.
So hot, you can just go in gardens in the morning and swimming pools in the afternoon.
Yes, definitely.
In the evening, the Singapore sling, of course.
So just to finish up on our little sort of global whirlwind tour of places that we've been, I picked up on some of Libby's photos that
Sabah.
she gave me, from Sabah.
Well, I took 8 tours to Sabah. And of course, when we go down the river and we see wild orangutans and proboscis monkeys and crocodiles and hornbills, we stay at the most wonderful lodge. We started off with 1 night and we ended up with 3 nights. And of course, we all have a sarong at the end of our bed. And the first time I went, I wore the sarong as a dress, and gradually it got to a skirt. And I think this was in about 2009, was it? Anyway, a lot of the men wore shorts underneath their sarongs. You can see this one's got a pair of trousers under in case they fell off, because we were never quite sure about how it went on. In the middle is Gwen. Gwen came and she was 79 and she rang me and she said, I can't believe I'm never going back. Would it be awful if I came when I was 80? And I said, no, you must come again. I haven't seen a wild pygmy elephant. So we found her a wild pygmy elephant. And, she went back twice after that and stayed with our friend John and his brother. And his brother had a lodge down the river. And she just loved, and they were like mother and son, the 2 of them. And John down here, the team, Wendy, who looks after organising our tours, John. And John sadly died last year at the tender age of 50, which really broke my heart. And then we have Jeffrey, who drove every single tour that I did. And this walkway, the one at Helligan's above the ground, this one is up in the canopy of the rainforest. I like to say it's 100 yards up in the sky. It is so high, it frightens the life out of me every time I do it, because they're just ladders on a rope bridge with a bit of timber on them. And one day Rosalind from the office and I were on this rope bridge, bringing up the rear so people didn't see my quaking knees, and all of a sudden a paradise flying snake landed right in front of Rosie. And everyone said, oh, take a photo. I said, I can't get my camera out. I'm too frightened. I'm hanging on for grim death anyway. Anyway, the snake was not venomous and it just took off into the canopy. But It's the most incredible experience to be up in the treetops. You can see that huge bird's nest burn there.
Yes.
And the trees in the agricultural park, this huge ficus, the whole tour group fits in one buttress. It's so enormous.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing place. And we don't go swimming at the end of it. We go snorkeling at the end of that tour. It's a wonderful, wonderful trip. And I hope we get back there one day. It's quite a unique part of Asia. It's underpopulated, and the subsistence farming and the tribal culture is just so alive. And there are no surfies. It's just a really good look at a part of Asia that makes you so welcome.
That's beautiful, Lib. And Libby, one of your other iconic tours.
Oh, yes. Well, this was a tour. This was this year. It happened to be the day before Donald Trump went to Taj Mahal, so it was beautifully set up. But we managed to go to India and come back on the 28th of February, and we had a really, really good trip. We had a new tour manager, Rakesh, and he was quite an academic, and he gave us a lecture every day on some aspect of Indian culture, for example, the caste system, and from a personal point of view, and it was really, really educating. And this year we had an itinerary that was just really wonderful. It's a great trip, and I really worry about India, and I hope we get back there soon.
Oh,
you all remember Peter Gemmell-Smith? Everyone went. We went to the shop, and everyone was measured up for something beautiful, as you can see here.
Yes.
And he didn't tell anyone what he'd bought. But the last night for the farewell dinner on the roof of the Lake Palace, he wore his gold suit with a turban, and we were
looks
all blown
amazing.
away. And yes, he was a lovely man, and he and Robin travelled so often with Ross Tours, and Robin does still, but we'll miss Peter terribly. This is at the Presidential Palace in Edward Lutyens' wonderful New Delhi. We're the only tour group that go here. There are so many local Indians and school groups, and we're always the only Europeans there. This huge garden is only open for 3 weeks a year. It's free. And this circular garden is just a mass of flowers. It's so hard to get the group. It's so big. It's so hard to get the group in a photo. But behind us, there are single dahlias that are almost twice as tall as we are. Amazing. And here we are at the Holi Festival. We happen to be in Jaipur for this. We had a banquet at night at the hotel, and then we went out to this lovely country property and threw colours and danced and ate and drank and had the time of our lives. And yes, we did throw our clothes away at the end of it. And it took us days, even though we'd rubbed ourselves with Johnson's baby oil so that it didn't stain, we came home with coloured hair. It was wonderful. Yes, India is such a great destination. And we stay in such beautiful, beautiful places. Yes.
Oh, Libby, thank you so much for sharing. That was beautiful. Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed our bit of a retrospective over the years, different tours, different countries. It's been a lot of fun putting all of this together. We are still travelling next year. So, Claire's in Tasmania, Libby's in the outback, Colin's in the outback. We're still doing a lot. So please do check our website and see what you'd like to join us on. But we hope that you've enjoyed our 40 years of Ross Garden Tours. So I think just to finish up, any final words from Claire, Colin and Libby?
Well, as Nora Jones would say, come away with me. I won't sing, come away with me. It's wonderful. And I think the number of people who come back year after year with us is a testament to how well organised and enjoyable our tours are. And I know at the end of a tour, people hate going home and can't wait for their next one. So I love being part of the team.
I was just going to say Merry Christmas and here's to a better year next year for 2021. So I think
Yes.
things are looking up. Australia's done a good job. So, yeah, we can still do our garden tours. So I think that's fantastic. And thank you for the opportunity to my fearless leader, Sandra Ross, and her partner in crime, Graham. And thank you for the welcoming friendships that I've had from all of the other tour leaders, who really are quite a bunch of special people.
Kirsty, could I just say a word? I
Yes.
just wanted to say thank you to Royce, Rosalind and Melissa, who do all the hard work behind the scenes to make these tours just run so effectively and efficiently. The whole thing just would not happen without them. So a big thank you to those three. We just love them to death, and they've been with us for such a long time, and we couldn't do it without them.
No.
I'd like to wish
Say
everybody,
hello.
Colin?
yeah, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Christmas and fantastic New Year, and hopefully it will get better for us all. I remember, like I said, on my first training tour with Graham, like I said, back in 2006, and even then I think he was one of the longest running, gardening tour companies then. And I understood then why, just with the dedication, the time, the effort. I remember just one little extra thing, putting the cases on every night and off every day. And that was like a workout. And Graham was doing it. I thought, he's a TV star, he doesn't have to do that. But he did every day and every night. The cases went on the truck and back off. And then what made the difference. And it was instilled into me then what makes a big difference in that tour company and being around is looking after the customers. And that's what they've always done. So 40 years, I'd say look forward to another 40 years with the family. You can see lots of you there. So keep up the amazing work. And I'm so glad that we're actually to be part of it over here.
Yes, congratulations on your 40. It's
Yes,
marvellous.
congratulations. Thank you, Colin, and thank you. And I can see young Cooper there. The generations of the Rosses continue.
Yes.
Oh, he's hungry, is he? Lunchtime.
Haven't fed me for half an hour.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this, and thank you for watching, and just lots of love and Merry Christmas from all of us here at Ross Tours. Thank you.
And a big thank you to Kirsty, who's joined us this year. I can see Royce standing behind Kirsty. Royce is behind all of us, in fact,
Royce.
with this tour company. And to think that it all started with one little tour back in 1980, and 40 years later, it's grown to be the enterprise that it has. But it's only done that because of the staff who put it all together, the tour leaders, and you've, for those that have joined us, our travellers that have joined us, you're seeing just a small group of our dedicated and really lovely tour leaders that we have. And of course, to our travellers, to all of you, a very, very Merry Christmas on behalf of Sandra, myself and everybody. Go safely into the Christmas season. We look forward to your company in 2021. All the very best and a Merry Christmas to you all.
Yes,
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks,
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Happy Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Christmas, Libby.
Boy. That's a boy.
Because.
Oh, leave.